take a look at the futures. I'll refresh this real quick as the data was a few minutes old. So all right, the Dow is down a little bit, and the S&P is up a little bit. You see the NASDAQ still up a 0.6 or so. They were up about 1% earlier, so things are trending down lower, if you will. Across the European markets, again, England's open today after being closed yesterday, so they're down. Everybody else is positive. Across Asia, pretty well mixed, if you will. Australia down a couple of percent there. These are our numbers from yesterday, and again, most of that happened in the last 15 minutes was when the S&P took a nosedive down into the red. Of course, NASDAQ was still up. And VIX, you might see a VIX trade showing up. We've talked about that going long VXX. Up to 26. Again, we've been talking 22 recently. So I do expect that with a red September that VIX will be going higher. I basically plan, if you're in this, I plan to hold it till 30 or so. Then I start taking some shares off there. So for a couple folks in the room that haven't talked about the way you play the VIX, if you will, VIX is a measurement of volatility. It takes all the options that are out there, puts and calls, and goes into a measurement of volatility based on that. If you turn around and want to trade volatility, meaning you think there's going to be increased volatility going into the market, into the election, then VXX is the ticker for you to use. You again want to think opposite the market. So you're buying the VXX when you think the market is going to sell off. So you're not shorting the market, but you are taking a long volatility trade. And then same thing after the election, it will be a short volatility as more unknowns become knowns and track down. So if that's something you want to add to your watch list, you might be able to learn a lot from watching it move up and down. So you can't shorten retirement accounts, right? But you can buy the VXX. So, and you can buy a short function called SH, which is an ETF. Basically, it takes the market backwards. So, you know, how do you make money when the market's on the way down? You buy SH, you buy VXX. So those are some tools out there for you. All right, here are the not much changed across the board in bonds. As far as oil, $43 per barrel out there is nice. And then off into precious metals. These got a bump yesterday. So again, September buying going into the election. Got a couple questions from folks hitting me up yesterday. You can buy up to 10%. Let's get rid of that. And you can buy up to 10% basically in precious metals if you want to hold that through the election. If you're actually buying the physical stuff, once you buy the ingots, you want to again store them and just keep them for long term. You don't really want to trade the physical stuff. But if you go in, if you go into and out of the ETFs, you can do that around the election. That's more of a trade than anything else. All right, as far as our headlines, biggest one out there really is, of course, both Apple and Tesla went up big time yesterday after the split. So again, Tesla did a 5-for-1, Apple did a 4-for-1, and this morning or last night, sorry, just to clarify in the chat, VXX is the instrument, the ETF that you want to use, even though everybody calls it the VIX out there. So VXX is the one you want to use. All right, back into the headlines. So again, there's Zoom shares soaring 40% last night. So huge move up. So we'll put that on our watch list for this morning to see if we can trade around it. Kodak, another company, jumps 50%. So again, KDOK, if I remember right, we'll confirm that symbol here in a minute. But back to Tesla. So you know that I think Tesla's a bit greedy as far as a money grab, and we'll talk about this in the question of the day later on. But so they are going to sell up to 5 billion, that's with a B, shares amid the stock rally. So the stock share price, even after the split, I'm looking on a different screen, is basically $500. So if they're issuing 5 billion, you do a quick math with taking a couple zeros off, that's 10 million shares of stock. So we will get into that once I'll show you another chart. So an extra 10 million shares. So if you think of life as a big, or the company as a whole is a big pie, you just now sliced out 10 million more shares of the pie. So that's not good. That's dilution, if you will. So if you had a share of Tesla, it's now literally worth less because they issued more shares. It's just pure greed, and they're doing it when their stock is on fire. So I guess from an investment perspective, good on them. It is smart that they're making a money grab while they can before the whole house of cards comes down. However, obviously it's going to end ugly in that stock, and you heard it here first and on repeat pretty much. So let's look at other stuff out there. 5G on iPhones and watches and iPad in October. That's all coming with the iPhone 12. No specific release day, but I did look at this because I want an iPhone 12 myself with the 5G network. So pretty excited about that. And I will let you know, of course, once I have it. You know about Zoom, we already talked about that. Made that stimulus check. It's basically faded into the background. The two sides can't agree. So, in going into the election, the odds of them agreeing are getting lower every day. It's an interesting stat. 21% of parents were affected with their work hours because of remote school. It is a little different having the kids around the house during the school day. Most of the time, they're locked away. That's their own doing, not us as a parent. But it is interesting having them around. Yeah, this is if you remember the Jerome Powell's talk last week about how we're going to keep inflation moving higher, is we're going to keep rates lower. This is almost a laughable headline. For 5 years, we're probably looking at low rates for easily over a decade. Remember, coming out of 2007, 2009, we kept interest rates low for about 8 to 9 years. We tried to raise them December 2018. We had the big 20% sell-off in the market, so it freaks everybody out. So I just don't see them doing anything with interest rates for a good decade. So again, where that hurts is with bonds. You don't really have that safe, CDs, bonds that pay anything. So you end up, it forces folks into the stock market that may not want to be in the stock market. It's an interesting one. If you've hadn't been in that position in your life where you weren't currently working and you had to try to qualify for a mortgage companies don't care how much money you have, they care how much money you bring in each month. So it's a different math equation for sure. All right. Okay, let's talk real quick, looking at the Tesla chart. So again, the long-term topic of the day, or today's topic, is Tesla and that 10 million share dilution that they're putting out there. So here's the stock performance. Again, this is all adjusted for the 5-for-1 split. So the stock is not at $2,500 today. It's at $500, where on Friday it was over $2,000. So all the math is done for you. This was, I believe, so there it is, 12.5% yesterday, just to move up on the first post-split day. Again, Apple was more like a 3% move. So big move. So when you look at, so what does 10 billion look like in outstanding shares? Well, right now there's 186 million shares outstanding. Now, by passing this with the SEC, now they are now authorized another 10 million shares. So that will jump to 196 million. So obviously each share represents a piece of the pie. Now your shares are subsequently diluted. If Tesla paid a dividend, that means they would have to continue to now pay 10 million times whatever their current dividend is. So not only are they not paying a dividend by issuing a bunch of shares, you kind of can't continue to pay a dividend. Apple's the other way. Apple is buying back shares. So if you have a share of Apple, with Apple's billions of dollars of cash that they're making, they are buying back shares, making your share worth more every day that they buy these shares back. And Apple does pay a small dividend, and that means they're retiring the need to pay that dividend out when they sell those shares off. So when you look at performance, I saw this morning, over 1,000% in the past year. The price targets were kind of funny. I don't see it reflected yet, but there was somebody out there that still, I have a $150 price target on it, which was before the split. So divide that by 5, $30 is what the shares are actually worth. This is the overvaluation number, 256 PE, if you will. So I don't know. They upped their price target barely to, these are not split adjusted yet. These are the old numbers, obviously. So kind of craziness going on in Tesla stock. We'll go over to the Schwab board and take a look at the stock there, as well as put onto our day trading hat. So, all right, so here's that Tesla stock. Make sure we got this shared out correctly, and I do. So anyhow, here's the chart. This is the only one we're going to look at today. There's the run up. If you haven't seen the terminology of SP, that again shows the split on the chart. All right, have about 8 minutes to the open. Let's go over to briefing.com. We'll look at things that are gapping up and down. For some reason, these are not in time order, so let's find it. 91644 gapping up. So, all right, there's some Kodak, Zoom, PRTH. I'm not going to take the time to type them in the room this morning. GoGo is going long at 30%, Zoom 27%. Lots of names going higher. RXT, again, that's a new issue. The Rocket Financial, I believe it's mortgage company, 8.6%. That is in our wheelhouse of that 5 to 10%. That's the only one that meets the criteria on the upside. Gapping down, ZSAN, ZSAN. We'll look at these individually. It's 14%. SCSC, I do not know what they are. They are at 9% on the way down. VNDA, 7%. And UBX at 4%. So got about 10 names to look at, and then we will go around the different charts out there. Okay, let's take the first one is going to be Zoom video. So we'll take a look at this. Again, gapping up, should be off to the right here. 38% is what we're seeing out of that. So really kind of a ridiculous chart. And when you zoom out here, I mean, look at that move. If you own it, great. I would consider selling some. If you don't, I mean, you can't buy into Zoom here up at 440. I don't think that lasts. But gapping up 325 to 440, it does have the volume. If you want to take that long, that's on you. I can't touch it here. Kodak, obviously they've been in the news for the big sell-off that they had. Basically, they got the, maybe it's KODK. KODK. See if I got that right. There you go. There's the move up from $6 up to $10. There's their history. They got that huge contract, went all the way up to $52 a share. They had some insider trading ahead of that. So again, the contract was taken from them. So it came all the way back down to around $6 a share. And let's see what the headline is here. Okay, so a company out there picked up a 5% stake. So not enough for me to put money behind it, but it is on the way back up. All right, look at PRTH. I don't know what that is. Priority Tech Holdings, $2 up to $234. Plenty of volume. And all kinds of choppiness. Had earnings a couple weeks ago. So sitting right here after being beat up. Let's see if we find acquire priority. So it's an acquisition. All right, so acquisition news there for PRTH. Again, that's already gapped up quite a bit, so I don't really like it, but we'll see. GoGo, again, this is the in-flight internet company that's out there. I saw an Intelsat to acquire GoGo's commercial aviation business for $400 million, so they're getting bought out, so they jumped up 24% to 624. I'm basically crossing through them there because once they the stock tends to go up to wherever they're getting bought out at, so we're probably around $6. Won't tend to go higher. The only one that really fits our criteria is RXT. See if it has the volume. It does have the volume. It's gapping 2135 up to 2180. That's not what it's not gapping up as it was already up to 23 earlier. So let's zoom in here and kind of check this out. There's where it closed. So it's basically almost flat from this huge gap up. So it is on earnings. So yeah, so it went down 7% on earnings, and then it gapped up significantly. So probably not going to touch RXT. So I don't like any of those long. If you were to take a long, I would take that Kodak on the stake of a PE firm moving in. All right, on the short side, let's look at ZSAN. Zano Pharma, it does have the volume, 163 to 142 is the drop. They're issuing 15 million shares, so diluting their stock. That's why it's down 14%. So that might work. We'll come back to it. SCSC, not enough volume for a scan source there. VNDA, another pharma company, not enough volume. And UBX, Unity Biotech, low volume, not really moving. Okay, so ZSAN on the downside is the only one I like there. Let's take a look. We've got 2.5 minutes to the open. Not in love with anything yet. There's DocuSign gapping up. See if that's an earnings. Nothing populating in there. That must be getting pulled up by Zoom. Only thing, short and Tesla, you know, that's a house of pain, but 7 million shares, it is down 2%. So that would be a short story out there. So we may watch that. I may call a trade in that. We'll see. Doesn't quite meet our criteria. At Home Group, let's check that out for a long. No news there. Slack and GameStop. GameStop's a continuation from yesterday. And then Slack, you know, I like that long term. Don't see a headline off of that. And then there's CrowdStrike also following Slack. Okay, let's get our big board set up here. Nothing I'm in love with this morning, so I would be inclined not to trade, but we will certainly take a look at it. All right, sharing out TD Ameritrade, getting ourselves set up from left to right. So we have SPY on the left. We're going to take the only short that I'm even interested in at all is this ZSAN. So we'll take that on the left, and then I will put Tesla in the middle. This would be a short. Again, tough to short Tesla, but we'll certainly watch it. And then long, I will put the Kodak, KDOK in there, backing it up with KODK. So again, if you think stop, you're looking at $5 in Tesla, you're looking at 5 cents over here in ZSAN, and then Kodak, we will be looking at probably about a 10-cent stop. So we have the board set up. We have SPY on the left. We have ZSAN short, Tesla short, Kodak short. Not in love with any of them. We'll look at the ZSAN if we can get the entry on it with the main bell coming up right now. All right, there we are open. All right, for ZSAN, plenty of volume this morning. Let's back it out here just a little bit. Kind of look at the history of this. So we would need it to hit down to 136 before we could take it. And then it would be a 4-cent stop in order for us to take it. So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, not optimistic we're going to get that entry. Do want to watch the overall market and see how the overall market's going to do this morning. If we do get a big red bar here, then that's going to help us out. For Tesla, you will be able to short this if you try to grab it. Kodak up 64%. There's almost no chance I'd be going into this long. So let's take that out of there and put GameStop in. Again, this would be a long. So we're looking short, short, long over here. 10%. Again, that's kind of failing right there. Tesla's coming in, so 502. A lot of volume here, a lot of selling on the way down. It's not gapping though, so you're taking this off a headline. Market is making that decent sized move down. ZSAN, get in here a little closer. Again, looking for 136 on that entry. I don't know if we're going to get that or not. All right, take a look at some other long names here. All right, I'm not doing it, but if you want to short Tesla, you're going to short at, basically you're going to wait for it to clear this congestion. So you would short at 485 with basically a $10 stop. You're going to have to leave it all the way up to 495. Nothing I would be excited about there, but if you are itching to trade, I think the overall market is going to go red today, and this would give Tesla, with their negative news of the stock offering, this is what you'd be looking for as far as your setup. So if it hits 485, I'll draw it on here. If it does not, then so be it. But get your ticker set up if you're going to take this 485 Tesla short. And it looks like it is going to hit it, so I'll pause for a second and watch it. Not yet. All right, the reason you wait for it to clear the low of the pre-market is in case somebody had a bunch of stops are set right out there, so it has to break through it. So 485 is where you took it. It's falling so fast I can't even keep the there. Stop. Second, let me get this drawn in here. I'll draw it at 485.09. It's more of conceptual there. So 485, it's a $10 stop. So again, 495 in change is the upper stop, and that's the one you're worried about. It is up there a little bit crooked. So each $10 you drop down, 475 would be kind of your first R point down here. And this is just blatant profit taking. So anyhow, you have your trade set up there. You're happy with it. You have 5 minutes of the red. You have an overall market that is trending down. NASDAQ still in the green. The Dow's in the red, and S&P is all in the red. All right, Zoom's selling off. Let's look at some other names. We'll see. Look at some of these short names. So again, we're not in ZSAN short. Just going to let that thing go. We're not in the Tesla trade, but if you took Tesla, there you go. Shorted ZM pre-market up 315, bought back at the open. There you go. You can get in pre-market with a name like this. And certainly look at the sell-off it's had here, another 17 bucks at the open. So we'll leave that up there in case you are still in play at all there. All right, SCSC does not have the volume. Again, 5,000 shares, 3,000. So it's really a total, what, 15,000 shares. That's not nearly enough there in SCSC. UBX, another short name, not really dropping too much at all. Starting to get the volume in it though. Going to another screen to see if UBX had a headline for it going short. I don't see the headline over there. All right, let's look at, let's see, Tesla and ZSAN, a long name. Get my mouse back over here. Let's see, GameStop was a long. See how it's doing in here. Ooh, pretty much sold straight off after that big move up. This is a continuation. If you look at yesterday, GameStop got a bunch of love. So that's yesterday's move, basically pre-market into the post-market from there to there. So that is filling the gap, selling off. See how Apple's doing this morning. Apple's in the green, pretty volatile there though at the open. Let's get back to a 1 day, 1 minute chart. So we're all looking at the same thing. 132 down to 130, still well in the green from yesterday's close though. Zoom backing up. All right, we're gonna look at go-go. Long. Up 22%, but not really moving much. Went 621 to 20-cent move, so it looks big on the chart, but it's actually not. And then RXT, again, was a long from gapping up, and it basically is failed there. So good thing we didn't take that. Now, when you see, going back to Tesla, this is an interesting pattern, and it's very good for a short. So you have a double bottom here at 470, basically 475, if you will. So that means somebody's sitting there with an order at 475 that every time the stock tried to touch 475, it couldn't. So there's a big institutional buy there, and we might be able to pull it out on a level 2 chart. Sorry for the Tourette's here that you may get while you're looking at this. 475. Don't see a specific buy order in there for it. So go back to our chart. That was a lot to process. But when you see the move up, you see one move up and then a smaller green candlestick, smaller green candlestick, and then a smaller green. This you tend to see, well, it looks like it's going higher. But if you see that kind of waterfall effect, that's when you see the next big move down. So that's a good thing when you're in a name short for it to do that. This obviously candlestick is bad because it's going higher. But if you see these get smaller, 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 and then taper out, that's when you get the big next move down, and it generally moves all the way back to the resistance level. So then it'll bounce at resistance, and then if it's going to go lower, it's got to consume this this buyer right here. So, all right, market's backing up here, 8 minutes in. Looks like Tesla would have failed for our short. We'll see. It's got a little bit there to go yet. We'll check back on it in a second. All right, as far as what's in play on the big board, Luckin up again. We can pull the Luckin story up. This is a good news story in recent days. So we're looking at the past 5 days here. So sitting at 212, boring, 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 boring. Moved up from 212 to 250. Got over 3 yesterday, up to 310. And then it's moving up to 323 today or so. So it's again up 3.5%. We'll keep an eye on that. Shopify, Baba, Northwest Bio up a little bit. Netflix was in the news, they have some non-subscriber thing to where they can get paid. I think they're doing one-off offerings. We'll see. That seems pretty smart. So again, instead of having to subscribe, you can now go in there and be able to buy a specific show off of Netflix. I like that. Tesla short was rejected, huh? So many of them, again, I'm in the chat now looking at Boom 5. Well, that means a crap ton of people are shorting it this morning, and I don't blame them. But again, that's a way to, we'll see how it works out. All right, see on the red side, ConocoPhillips, LCA, that's again the Golden Nugget Online Gaming. Workhorse selling off a little bit. Overall for a red market, well, it's actually S&P just went green. Not too many names getting hit bad. So kind of like that. Kohl's, that's a call up there, selling off 25%. All right, let's go back to our chart to see if it held. 495 did hold. I would not be excited about this this trade too much though, but if the market does roll back red, I think that's when you would see this trade continue on. All right. I'll leave that up there so we can watch this Tesla to see if it works or not while I talk about the stock buyback. So give me just a second to get set up here. Closing out the chat. Boom 5, good job on Zoom. $315 in the, if you want to share what your R is, are you at a 100 R and you got your 300, or are you at a 315 R and basically got an R? You can share that if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. Trying to short Tesla there, it went through the 495, so that would have failed. If it gets back up to, this is the real short now, if it gets back up to over 500 and then retest this 495 level, then that would be your short entry point for going back down. All right, let's see, nothing else to add in the Q&A, and let me get set up for the question of the day. Today's question of the day is, what is a stock issuance and what is a stock buyback? And the reason this is important today is because Tesla has issued they got approval to issue another $5 billion in stock. So like I showed you on the chart earlier today, they have 186 million shares outstanding right now. Basically $5 billion worth of their shares at the $500 price point, which is right where Tesla is another 10 million shares. So when you think of individual stock prices or individual stock as shares of an overall pie, each share was worth 186 millionth, 1/186 million, if you will, as your slice of the pie. Well, now that there's going to be 10 million more shares out there, your personal share piece of the pie, your draw to the earnings, is basically reduced by that 10 million shares. So your piece got, a very small piece, got just a little bit smaller. We can think about the opposite out there is what is called a stock buyback. Now, using Tesla as an example, if they had 186 million outstanding shares, which is what they did prior to today's announcement, if you retired 10 million shares or bought back $5 billion worth, which is what Apple's doing, then that would take that 186 million shares outstanding down to 176 million shares outstanding. And in that case, when a company is doing a stock buyback, then they are your individual share of stock, and people usually own more than one. So your chunk of shares is actually, when a company is doing a stock buyback, each share is worth more. So Tesla is diluting their shares, which is common when a stock is on fire. And as I showed you earlier, it's gone up 1,000% in the last calendar year. So since last September 1st. So it's on fire. The stock's overvalued, in my opinion, but they're capitalizing on that to be able to raise money at the $500 a share level. Now, when you look at Apple's situation, they have a lot of cash on hand. And with interest rates low, they have chosen to issue more debt to build more cash on hand. So when you think about it from a balance sheet perspective, in Apple's situation, they issue debt, which means sell a bunch of bonds and raise money that way. And then they're using that capital that they raise to buy back shares. So as a shareholder, that benefits you tremendously. It puts more cash on the balance sheet for Apple, and your shares are now worth more. Another advantage that the company has is that any company out there that issues a dividend has to pay that. Again, it's a dividend per share. So when they retire shares or when they buy those shares back, that is another dividend payment they do not have to make. So Apple only has a small dividend, but when you take it across, millions of shares, obviously that adds up as a huge expense for them. So each month, by buying back shares, that is what they can do to, again, use their capital effectively. So when you think of companies out there and you hear that they've got a lot of cash on hand, there's a couple things they can do. They can buy their stock back. They can start issuing a dividend, which is the regular dividend, which comes out quarterly for most folks, or they can do a special dividend. Ford did this a couple years ago, where they paid out their regular dividend, and then they did a one-time dividend to basically take a bunch of the profits that they had and move that out to shareholders as kind of a good deal for the shareholders. So do I buy or sell based off of a company that's either issuing more shares, again, diluting, or buying them back, i.e. strengthening? No, but that is something I look for in the headlines. So if you think about Apple, even if Apple's profits, revenue, profits, and guidance all stay the same, the fact that they are buying back shares is reducing the share pool, means each share is individually worth more over time. if nothing else changes. In Tesla's situation, assuming their revenue stays the same going forward, their profits stay the same going forward, and their guidance stays the same going forward. In other words, nothing else changes. Just via the fact that there's 10 million more shares out there, the share price will drop again if nothing else changes. So that is a fundamental look at share price. When you look at stock prices based off of emotion and behavioral psychology, that sort of thing. Again, both Tesla and Apple are on fire, but that's just because they did the big stock split, and they're a Robinhood favorite, and they're the best stocks out there, so people are rushing into them, kind of like they did going into the bubble of 2000. Again, it's not it's not across the board. It's just a couple names that are really carrying the market higher from here. So again, that's a little bit on stock dilution and stock buyback. So that's all I have for today's show. Please reach out to me at steve@ototnow.com with any questions or comments. Thanks again for joining me, and here's to you fighting the good fight every day to be on time, on target with your financial goals. Thanks.